a year or so out from an election, and if you listened to the Focus on Politics last night or some of the comments Peter's been making for the last few days, you know that he's very upbeat about where we go. So I'd like you to give a warm party welcome to our party leader, Honourable Peter Dunne.
Thank you, Robin. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to not the windswept hills of Johnsonville, but a sunny Wellington day where all is right with the world, and we're having our party conference here in the heart of the Oharu electorate. It's great to see you all here. I want immediately to acknowledge the contribution from my benchmate, actually, and parliamentary colleague to Uraroa Flattle. He's absolutely right in what he says about the trick of MMP being collaboration between parties on areas of common interest, and that's something I'm going to talk about a little later on. But it's certainly a relationship that we value with our colleagues in the Maori Party. We do not agree on everything, nor will we, nor should we, because we're different parties. But where we do have common ground, we found particular value in working together. I want to begin this morning by immediately acknowledging a number of key people in the party. Our President, Robin, our Deputy Leader, Judy Turner, Deputy Mayor, Whakatane, a councillor, District Health Board member, and all-round good person. I want to acknowledge the members of the board who've worked tirelessly all year in what have not been the most propitious of circumstances, for their efforts, for their support, and their loyalty. As we've alluded to so far, this has been a year like no other in our history, and it's one that I hope we never repeat. We've gone from being a registered party to not being one, and then being one again with a substantially boosted membership. I started the year as a busy minister with a range of portfolios and a big agenda, and then got abruptly stopped in my tracks. But in a year of upheaval, there has been an encouraging constant, and it's this. Our flame has continued to flicker, and the outpouring of support and encouragement in our darkest moments in June was one of the most uplifting and humbling experiences I've ever had in politics, and I really acknowledge that. The number of people who during that time and since have told me that it was vital that I hang in there and that United Future should carry on, translated that encouragement into a vote for us, we would be the major party of government today. Now, be that as it may, this conference is a chance to take stock, to reflect, and to look to our future. And I think the reason why it is important that United Future continues to play a significant role in Parliament and in government in the years ahead is the same as it was when this party was launched. We are here for the primary reason that we want New Zealand to be the best place in the world to live, to work, and to raise your family. Nothing else actually matters. We are not interested in what is the right ideological position to adopt and the policies that pander to that. And Tova, I have just found the spelling error in my speech, thank you. Because people do not live their lives in that straitjacket. Instead, we always look to the best solutions, the best outcomes, and the best ways of achieving these. So all our policies and everything we do are geared to the objective of making our country the best place in the world to live and raise your family. And that is something we should never lose sight of. In practice, our approach has two foundation stones. A focus on families and communities as the primary fulcrum of power in our society, and an absolute determination to promote and perpetuate a sustainable environment underpinned all the way by a commitment to the New Zealand way of doing things. If families and communities are to be our primary fulcrum of power, then the way in which we structure our regional and local government and the delivery of the services that they provide becomes vital. For us, it's summed up in the word localism. We've just been through the local body elections, and everyone is lamenting the poor voter turnout. There are a couple of obvious reasons, I suggest. A growing sense of disempowerment, a sense that local government is toothless, because Wellington really makes all the decisions that count, and that local democracy is therefore actually a bit meaningless. After all, the government can step in and appoint commissioners in place of a council if it sees fit, and it can suspend elections for any number of years, almost any time it likes. So why bother voting? That attitude has to change, and has to change profoundly. There needs to be a new relationship between central and local government, based on a much more equal partnership that recognises the distinct identities of our regions and our communities, that we are not all the same, and that we have regional leaders who are capable of making bold decisions on behalf of the people they represent and being accountable for them, without being second-guessed all the time by central government. Let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean. In Hawke's Bay, there is a group involving local government that is very keen to promote the region as being GE-free for the next 10 years, to boost its food and beverage producing credentials in export markets. Yet they've been told by central government that if they try to do so, the government will legislate to stop them, because such a move will cut across their 100% pure New Zealand strategy. I say that how Hawke's Bay presents itself to international markets should primarily be a matter for Hawke's Bay interests to resolve, and that if people do not like the actions that their local leaders take in respect of that, then they can vote them out at the next election. Similarly, in Canterbury, while there may have been good reasons for the suspension of Environment Canterbury a couple of years ago, with fresh elections now not due until 2016, the time has come to restore regional government in Canterbury now and to let it get on with its original functions. And that same principle of respecting local choices should apply right across New Zealand to every region, because we will not achieve true localism until central government is prepared to trust local communities and councils to make the best decisions for the families and the communities that they represent. And when we see that occur, we will start to see confidence in the worth of local government restored, and people more willing to participate in its processes as either voters or candidates, because they will see it as worthwhile, with a direct impact on their lives. And at that point, we will be making a real difference at a local level, and we will be truly empowering our communities and our families to be the best that they can be. The second foundation stone is environmental sustainability. I start from the point that all New Zealanders, by our very nature, are environmentalists. All of us, Māori and Pākehā alike, have a special bond with our natural environment, be it as farmers and stewards of the land and the seas surrounding it, hunters, fishers, trampers, climbers, and those who just like to confront its remarkable physical challenges, or those who simply take inspiration from its grandeur and its beauty. Whatever the reason, we are all environmentalists. It's simply a part of being a New Zealander today. So naturally we are appalled when something like the recent Fonterra situation occurred, or when we hear that over half our rivers are unsafe to swim in, or when our national environmental credentials are challenged overseas. This is not the New Zealand we imagine or want to be ours. But how has it come to this? I think that part of the answer lies in the fact that we have allowed environmental policy to be hijacked by the political left, and have accordingly succumbed to the notion that unless you are a green, you cannot have any concern for our environment. Or that such concern as you do have is horribly compromised by the rest of your life, which is of course complete nonsense. In an open society, there is a place for the green Taliban, but it is at the fringes, not centre stage. Mainstream New Zealanders who care about unpolluted waterways or the impact of climate change are tired of being ridiculed for the general nature of their concern and for not being single-issue zealots. And they are also tired of a lot of the social baggage that seems to be expected to be borne by those who profess a concern for the environment. One does not have to be a social activist to have a legitimate concern about environmental issues. So, faced with an arrogant intolerance that, for example, sees people who work in the energy or mineral sectors lambasted as pariahs and worse than vandals, or that considers it acceptable to abuse business leaders to their face as corrupt because they try to make an economic profit to keep people in jobs, it is no great surprise that many people who do care have simply walked away and left it to the extremists because they do not want to be part of all the other claptrap. And while all the talk goes on and the sanctimonious political campaigns are waged, the overall state of the environment goes backwards until there is a crisis. But I think the mainstream giant is starting to stir from its slumbers. I sense that an increasing number of people in business and the wider community who generally care about the environment are turning against the notion that the only way to show your environmental credentials is to support the Green Party. They will have heard statements like one in the House the other day from the Green Member of Parliament from Waiheke Island, whose name temporarily escapes me, to the effect that economics was one of the dark arts, some sort of voodoo science. This is the garbage that these people get away with and are rewarded for their environmental hypocrisy and stupidity. And I think that there are people around, many New Zealanders, who understand that good economics often make for good environmental outcomes. That's the nature of business in the world today. And that we can develop win-win situations. And that being pro-business and pro-jobs is not automatically anti-environment. The people that I'm talking about are the people who enjoy being out and about in our great outdoors, who enjoy the bush and our waterways, and who are tired from constantly being sneered at for the pursuit of those legitimate pastimes. What the recent Fonterra case did was alert them to the challenge, not just resolving that particular issue, but more broadly also addressing those underlying concerns and the impact of the perception that the brand 100% New Zealand Pure is now somewhat tarnished because it affects ultimately their ability to sell their products and earn the export dollars that the country needs. United Future is here for all those New Zealanders who care passionately for our environment, but who do not choose to buy into the leftist mantras of the Green Party and so feel their concerns are being marginalised. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the rise of the purple greens, the mainstream New Zealanders who care practically about the state of the environment and want to do more than just pontificate and wring their hands in despair. Like no other party, we unashamedly stand up for the interests and values of outdoor recreationists, of hunters, of fishers, of trampers, good, solid Kiwis all. Our Game Animal Council, which will be passed into law shortly, will be an important step forward in giving recognition to the contribution they make to our country. As I said before, all our policies are geared towards that primary objective of making New Zealand the best place in the world in which to live, work and raise your family. Our policies are based on our liberal democratic principles and our commitment to freedom and choice. But because we are also pragmatists, who like to achieve things by working constructively with other parties rather than just forever arguing about the things we disagree over, our policies are also laced with a heavy dose of reality derived from our vision of where New Zealand is likely to be over the next 20 to 30 years and beyond. The face of our country is changing rapidly and profoundly, both demographically and ethnically. We already know about the ageing population. That's why our Flexi Super proposal is such an important initiative. But perhaps more significantly, the Asian, Maori and Pacific face of our country will also change dramatically over the next 50 years. Our grandchildren will be truly unique, an amalgam of all these influences, meaning that the New Zealander of the future will be like no other on this planet. Now that is not a fate to shy away from. It is an opportunity to embrace. We should use it to shape our future in so many different ways. Our place in the world, our constitutional arrangements, and our form of government, our economic and our social development. And we should make the connection that the legendary innovative skills that we possess, the so-called number 8 wire mentality, is not accidental, but a critical part of the Kiwi makeup. Whether it be splitting the atom, climbing Everest, producing some of the best filmmakers in the world, having the best sailors or making the best wine, the All Blacks and Eleanor Catton winning the Man Booker Prize. We achieve these things because we are New Zealanders. Not in spite of it, because we are New Zealanders, curious, bold and unbowed. These are our values, our heritage and our background, and acknowledging them and building on them are the keys to our future. This is not about wallowing in the past and looking forever backwards, but about preserving and using those attributes to influence and to shape our country as it moves forward in a genuinely New Zealand way. Now, one obvious area where we can apply these attributes is education. Our teachers are amongst the best in the world, and our achievement levels are the envy of most. Our schools, without the nonsense of charter schools, are vibrant places of learning. But we can do so much better. Many of our teachers burn themselves out through hard work. Those who stick around and are not on the promotion ladder, or who do not seek to be, by their early 30s, are effectively trapped on the same pay scale through to when they retire. The cost of maintaining and upgrading school buildings which are empty for significant parts of the year is becoming prohibitive. And knee-jerk school closures are not the answer in every case. While we as a country do far better than most, we cannot go on indefinitely the way we are. We need a fresh approach, free from the ideological battles of the right and the left of recent years, an approach which focuses on world-class educational achievement for the coming generations. Now, I do not have the arrogance to say that I possess all the answers, but what I do know is that the constant talking past each other of successive ministers, teachers and educational groups is as debilitating as it is pointless, and it's done nothing to advance the educational achievements of our children. Bluntly, this has to stop. Education is not a contest for supremacy between the Minister of Education and the teachers' unions. It is about the best way of putting the educational needs of the coming generation first, and then developing a plan to achieve that. Educational leadership is not about who shouts loudest, or about who proclaims the most self-righteous passion for the cause, but about who is prepared to work most constructively for the benefit of students. Nor is it about the minister's vision, or an equally tarnished vision from the sector or the business groups who push a vested interest, but about creating a space where all can contribute to innovative, radical policy that keeps us as a nation at the head of the game. And remember this, our children deserve no less than that. Another area where our children deserve our protection is in the area of illicit drugs. I acted when Associate Minister of Health to deal with the awful problem of various synthetic designer drugs by developing the Psychoactive Substances Act, which effectively says that no synthetic drugs can be sold on the market unless they are proven to be of low risk to the user, in pretty much the same way that we test for the safety of new medicines before we let them on the market. That legislation is a world first, and many countries, including those at a major drug symposium in Denver just a couple of weeks ago, are looking with admiration at this initiative. This party, United Future, has always taken a strong line against the proliferation and the spread of narcotic drugs, and I make no apology for that. But at the same time, I have never bought into the war on drugs rhetoric, which I think is just silly and over the top, especially since it's doubtful that the so-called war has actually ever worked. Our existing Misuse of Drugs Act is nearly 40 years old. Times have changed radically since 1975, and the legislation is now being reviewed. But we need a different approach to be truly effective in protecting the vulnerable. Decriminalising the personal use of cannabis is the lazy, self-centred solution promoted by some drug reformers, but it is not the answer. Nor is the even more spurious argument in favour of the medicinal benefits of cannabis. I'm told that in the United States, for example, the overwhelming majority of cannabis provided on medicinal grounds actually ends up being used recreationally. So it may well be, therefore, that subject to the upcoming reviews of the various UN drug conventions that New Zealand is party to, that the most effective long-term regulatory regime will be to extend the low-risk principle of the Psychoactive Substances Act to include all narcotic substances, although to be honest I do not see that happening anytime soon. And nor do I see it leading to the inevitable decriminalisation of cannabis that cannabis advocates predict. All of the evidence that I saw as Associate Minister of Health overwhelmingly made it clear that cannabis is not a low-risk substance, so it would not pass the regulatory standard the Psychoactive Substances Act imposes, so it would not be for sale legally under any circumstances. And indeed, only in the last week have we had a tragic reminder of the risks involved with the report of the Transport Accident Investigation Commission into the Carterton balloon crash. And may I say, in passing on that subject, that I believe the government ought to be moving as a priority to introduce compulsory random drug testing for recreational and adventure tourism operators, and ultimately on the roads as well. The immediate challenge that we face is to be ready for the general election next year. UnitedFuture has been the most successful support partner of all for governments under MMP. We have been a support partner for Labour and National in 5 of the last 6 parliaments. Whether it be Wellington's Transmission Gully Highway, the New Zealand Medicine Strategy, the Families Commission, the Game Animal Council, business and personal tax cuts, Flexi Super, the Gambling Commission, the abolition of gift duty and the reform of the charitable donations tax rebates, all of which were UnitedFuture initiatives, we have been successful in making a positive difference for families across New Zealand. And the reason for our success is quite simple. It has been our focus on concentrating on the things that we have common ground over, rather than forever arguing over our disagreements, that has seen us work constructively with successive governments, and as Te Iwaroa acknowledged this morning, with parties of common interest as well, and in the process be able to achieve much of our key policies. Although National's performance in the last couple of years in a number of areas has been a little less than stellar, and while Labour might present a more cohesive challenge than previously, it's my view that the steadily improving economy and the Prime Minister's personal mana still mean next year's election is National's to lose. But I have to say there still seem to be some in the National Party who cling to the faint hope that they will gain an outright majority in their own right, and so we'll not have to worry about coalition partners or support arrangements. Well, let me quash that fantasy right now. It is simply not going to happen under proportional representation. National's last election result in 2011 was arguably its high watermark, so it's likely to be all downhill from here. But even though it's likely to remain the largest party in Parliament, National is going to need partners to remain in government. And I think it should immediately forget half-baked notions of manufacturing an arrangement with the untested crackpot Conservatives or the serially unreliable New Zealand First. Because it will not be able to form a government if it just leaves it all to chance, throw the cards in the air and let's see where they fall. The National Party, if it's serious about the next election, needs to be working actively now alongside and with its current support partners to ensure that our respective and different political opportunities are maximised in the lead up to the next election. I need to say this pretty bluntly. This will not happen unless it is planned for. It is not going to be enough to just wish it all might occur, perhaps have a symbolic cup of tea during the election campaign, and then lament afterwards, when the votes have been counted, that, oh dear, how sad it was that things turned out the way they have done and the opportunity has been lost. On the other side of the ledger, it's by no means impossible that Labour could be in a position to form a government after the election next year, and that government might need to seek the support of United Future. But for that to have any possibility, Labour would need to abandon its plans for a capital gains tax, for higher taxes for higher income earners, its plans to abolish the Families Commission and its continued opposition to the Game Animal Council. Things I suggest simply will not happen. So the challenge we face moving forward from this conference is to be ready for the election whenever it occurs, hopefully about a year from now, with high quality candidates, with strong organisation, robust policy and the infrastructure to give effect to all of those things. This conference is the first step in our journey towards election 2014. It is a vital one for the party given the experiences of this year and the opportunities that have grown from those. It's one that I hope you all embrace. And Mr. Chairman, as I close, I wish everyone an enjoyable, challenging and rewarding day as we set out down that path. And I look forward to working with and alongside you as we go along the collective journey next year and beyond. Thank you for your support, your encouragement and your friendship. I'm looking forward to your participation in the events of today.